Welcome to our webinar. We will be discussing the final Use Case Observatory Open Data with Real-World Impact today. We will give people a few more minutes to join, just one or two. In the meantime, why don't you let us know where you're joining us from today in the chat, maybe what the weather is like. We would love to see it. Ooh, Madrid, very exciting. We're already getting the first responses. Paris. We are in Luxembourg right now, by the way, and it is quite grey here, but at least it is not raining. So I really can't complain, really. We have Hamburg, Holland, Gap, Potsdam, Macedonia. Wow. A lot of different places. How exciting. Greece, France. Oh, somebody else from Luxembourg. Very nice. So you know what it's like to live here in the winter. Rome. Oh, that must be lovely. In space. Nice. Oh, Antonio is in Uruguay. Very exciting. We would just give it a few more seconds, but I think we can get started very soon. We have The Hague, Italy, Latvia. Very cool. Well, yes. So I think we we've waited a good amount. If people are still joining, that is of course fine. But let's get started with the introductions. So we all know that open data can sometimes feel a bit abstract, but today we have this webinar to remind you that this is not really the case at all. In fact, open data can have very visible and very important real-life impacts. For this reason, the European Data Portal has been collecting different use cases for the past 2 years, where we have been tracking the development, the challenges they have been facing, and also drawing some lessons from their experiences. So today we've invited one of the main authors of this study to present the findings from this year. And then we also have 2 guests whose organizations are employing open data to make this world just a little bit better in practice every day. So the first application that we will hear from is Integreat. This is an application to allow refugees and newcomers in Germany to access important resources in their own language. This project is already cooperating with over 100 municipalities, so it's grown a lot over the last 2 years. Then the second one we will hear from takes a more creative approach. It is called Tangible Data, and it is an initiative that transforms complex data sets into physical sculptures, immersive experiences, and AI-driven tools to make sustainability not only more understandable, but also more actionable. So as you can see, there's a lot to look forward to. It will be a very interesting webinar, and who knows, maybe we can even inspire some of you to start creating your own open data applications. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Let's go through some of the housekeeping first. So today, as always, we will record this webinar and publish it on the data.europa Academy afterwards. We will also send you the link to that and the slides. So don't worry if you're missing a moment, because you can always rewatch it later. If you have any questions throughout the presentations, please do not hesitate to post them in the chat. We will collect them and we will try to ask as many as possible at the very end of our webinar. So just post whatever you want to know into the chat. And then lastly, it really, really helps us if you reserve about 3 minutes after the webinar to help us improve by filling out the feedback form. We are currently in the process of planning all the webinars for the next year, so we would love to hear what you want to hear more, what you want to see more of, what you're especially interested in, and any other comments you might have. So please, it would be really helpful if you take the time to fill out the survey. So now let's move on to the speakers for today. You have already heard a little bit from me, but you might notice that I am a different host from usual. My name is Hannah Croker, and I also work at the European Data Portal at the Publications Office here in Luxembourg. Then we have some other guests as well. The first one is Sem Enzerink. He was, as I said, one of the lead authors of our Use Case Observatory report. He is also a Capgemini senior manager, and he has been for over a decade, researching public sector transparency, open data, and digital government transformations. Through his work, he's been contributing to both the European Data Portal and also national open data reuse studies. And most recently, he's been leading the Volume 3 of the Use Case Observatory report and also an evaluation of the Open Data Directive. Our second guest today will be Svenja Osmers. She is the lead of the partner management team at Tür, which is the parent organization of Integreat since 2022. She first got to know this organization during her bachelor's degree in international relations, and she later joined the partner management team as a student assistant during her master's in Atlantic Studies in History, Culture, and Society. Since returning from her maternal leave in October 2025, Svenja has been leading the Integreat project and coordinating all the different teams involved with this. And then last, but definitely not least, we have Antonio Moneo, who is the CEO and founder of Tangible Data. He's worked at different universities, such as the London School of Economics, and also regularly teaches at IE University on big data for sustainable development specifically. He has also worked at the Inter-American Development Bank and the BBVA, another bank. And his work in open data reuse has even been recognized by the City of Madrid with an award for excellence in open data reuse. He has also previously taken part in the EU Open Data Datathon in 2021, which is an event that hosted by the Publications Office. And now we're almost ready to get started with our first presentation, but just to give you a quick idea of what the agenda for today is, we will first hear from Sem, who will present some of the main findings of the Use Case Observatory. Then Svenja will share some of her experiences with Integreat over the past 2 years, and then we will hear from Antonio Moneo, who will describe his tangible data initiative and what he has experienced over the last few years. And then finally, as I said, you can ask your questions at the end, so please just ask them in the chat box throughout the presentations. We're looking forward to that. And without further ado, I will now pass the word on to Sem to get started with his presentation.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Hannah, and for the warm words of welcome. As said, my name is Sem Enzerink. I had the pleasure to work as the lead author and researcher for the third volume of the Use Case Observatory. And it's really a unique project in that sense. Many cases, when we analyze open data views, we analyze the societal impact, for example, of open data, we take kind of a picture, a one-off analysis in which we, for example, look at the impact being realized. And there's many examples of this luckily available, either through the European data portal and the use cases listed there, as well as some of the national repositories for use cases. And like I said, these really provide valuable information about the impact, about the value of open data, and what it can bring to these initiatives. However, and that's the uniqueness of this Use Case Observatory, about 150 years ago, it was already shown that when you take multiple pictures throughout multiple years, you get much more of a moving picture and a moving overview. It also brings to life much more the value of the picture at hand. And that's exactly what we've been doing also in this Use Case Observatory. Beyond just taking this single picture, we took multiple pictures across different years in order to really see what the dynamics of open data look like in real life examples and real life initiatives. Speaking with many involved in those initiatives across Europe. And as Hannah already mentioned, today I will share a few words in terms of the Use Case Observatory's third volume and the main results of that, before we deep dive into some of the main contributors and initiators from their perspectives. But we really take this long-term development and long-term perspective in order to better understand how open data contributes to societal initiatives and business initiatives across Europe. That means that between summer 2022 and this year, we analyzed dozens of different organizations, initiatives, businesses, leading to 13 concrete open data reuse cases, and analyzed those across those 3 years, really understanding how open data evolved, but also what type of additional open data was added, for example, over time, to really see the role of open data in the success of those initiatives. And we have analyzed, as is the case for other studies as well, analyzed the open data impacts across 4 main domains. So that includes the economic value of open data. In this case, we analyzed a Belgian initiative that helps, through the use of open data, job seekers for finding relevant job opportunities that also relate to their place of residence, for example, and their preferences in terms of the labor market. Secondly, we also analyze different initiatives related to governmental impact and governmental value through open data, either through election-based results and polling open data, as well as budgetary and financial open data in order to achieve greater accountability. Thirdly, we analyzed different initiatives in the social domain and initiatives that contribute to societal development and societal impact through open data usage. And today's speakers will also inform you more about their specific initiatives in these areas. And fourthly, we had the opportunity to look at the role of open data in stimulating cleaner and greener societies and cities. And we're able to map how open data combined with other non-open data, for example, leads to sustainability objectives, and also from an environmental point of view improves Europe throughout. And like I said, we had the opportunity to be in contact with these initiatives over 3 years in time, and that really helped to track each year with multiple series of interviews, but also desk research and document analysis, for example, like annual reports, to really see what open data has been used, but also how has that contributed to growth of the initiative, what different strategic decisions taken, for example, to really understand the tangible and real life effects of open data. Then giving you a little bit of a view on the results. So like I said, we had 3 different years of analysis and 3 different series of analysis as well. And that also allowed us to zoom out a bit and see what are main developments, what are main trends, and how can we relate those also to the developments of those initiatives. And it might be good to mention that these initiatives also varied in nature, in legal nature, for example, some being companies, some being societal initiatives, some being linked to, for example, non-governmental organizations, NGOs. And also the trajectory of those initiatives, of course, differed across the multiple years. So some actually extended or also started developing other activities based on the open data available. Some initiatives took a bit of a turn. They started using quite different open data over time because they saw a need for incorporating other type of data as per their development. So we really had a quite rich and varied overview of that. And that also allows us to draw a few lessons learned based on the stories that those initiatives shared with your European data portal. And like I said, by looking at those multiple years, we also can have a bit of a better understanding what that says for the upcoming time, for the future. So first, looking at the four impact areas that I pointed out and that are also further listed in the report. So on the economic impact, for example, we noticed that on the one hand, the open data contributions led to the initiative having a wider reach. And also, for example, growth could be propelled forward in a way that accelerated growth that was not possible without having open data on, for example, geospatial information, information about migration developments, educational information, related open data to healthcare institutions and, for example, persons with disabilities. So it really helped also as a catalyst for obtaining a greater reach, but also obtaining acceleration through the use of openly available open data. Data, by the way, from the European Data Portal harvested, but also, of course, from the national institutions and other statistical offices. So on the one hand, we saw through the use of open data that growth could be accelerated. And at the same time, we also noticed that organizations could become more efficient. So with the use of openly available data, it was easier for most participants to start their analysis or to combine different data sets also with the information already internally available. And that really sped up also the process of working on the initiative activities themselves. So that also meant that openly available information increased the efficiency of operations, allowed for quicker analysis, and by doing that, again, more from an economic and entrepreneurial point of view, help the initiatives to obtain bigger impact. Then, when we look at the government impact and some of the use cases around either democratic information or data around, for example, the budgets of ministries and municipalities, this really helped for the most to have greater decision-making processes. So when I started working on open data about 10 years ago, this was one of the bigger promises. So through the use of open data, we can help societies and democracies to be more transparent. And by having more transparency, we will also be able to have greater accountability over decisions being made. So either journalists or, for example, media parties, as well as, for example, organizations active in the field of civil rights, they have greater data available, and for that reason can also monitor better how governments are thriving. But also government organizations themselves can better understand the so-called evidence-based way of working and evidence-based of policy-making processes. So also internally, government organizations have simply more and richer information available for them to make better decisions for citizens and other beneficiaries in their administration. So from the government perspective, again, we see kind of a twofold perspective. On the one hand, external entities and stakeholders can better understand and monitor what's going on. Same goes for politicians, for example. And at the same time, there's internal benefits because the government organizations themselves have better information at hand. And because of that, they can also inform their own policy making processes in the meantime. Perhaps before addressing the other areas, I already do see many questions and comments coming in through the chat functionality of this webinar environment. So please continue to do so. And what we will do is we will curate a set of questions which either I will address and answer later on, or the other presenters will elaborate on based on their stories. So please continue to keep those questions in, and we'll certainly come back later in the webinar to answer those, or provide, for example, a few more illustrations. Then when we look at the social impact, and again, our two speakers will inform you about their observations and lessons learned. However, at least from the full Use Case Observatory, we see that a major advantage of the open data reuse lies within fostering collaboration. So through the use of openly available information, it has become much easier for different stakeholders to work together because they have a common knowledge base. And also we see different initiatives that allow for greater inclusion of groups that might be marginalized, for example, and also wider effects when it comes to welfare and healthcare, for example, in Europe. So by adding open data to other types of data sources, by combining that with existing initiatives, initiators are able to match much better societal needs. So that might has to do with improving the healthcare conditions, for example, of persons with disabilities by opening up data about those statistics and sharing that with healthcare providers and policymakers, for example. But also through the upcoming stories from Integreat and tangible data, which again I think show the wide variety of open data reuse being possible. Then on the environmental impact, as I already mentioned, we do see that especially in the current debates about becoming a more green and sustainable Europe, facts and information are critical, and having open data from different authorities also on different levels. So it might be related on the global scale, on the European scale, on the national or regional or local scale even, really helped to come up with creative solutions, creative applications, for example, to see forestry development in Romania, for example, and also to link that directly to potential activities or actions based on the information. And the same goes for some initiatives we monitored in light of, for example, air quality, which might be rather difficult for an individual to take note of, whereas through open data and develop solutions and monitoring websites, for example, it's very transparent what the status looks like. And also, like I said, again, informs policymakers and governmental institutions to take action and to see how air quality or forestry development, as I mentioned, can be improved. Then summing up a few other lessons learned that are not necessarily linked to one of the four impact dimensions, but more related to some of the other things that may also help your initiative grow. So I can imagine that many of you joining also work with open data as part of your initiative or company, or you might be working as a policy officer or a public official who likes to further stimulate use and uptake of open data and improving and increasing the impact. And here we have also a few lessons learned in our 3-year longitudinal analysis. So first of all, it's very important to find relevant funding mechanisms and business models, because especially for societal initiatives, the sole development of open data as part of the organization might not be sufficient to have the capacity needed. So that means that some of the initiatives that we have spoken with, for example, try to have a free model or a free version of their solution or two, but also one that is paid, for example, or there's a payment model based on the type of organization that benefits from the open data solution. And that really requires also creativity and innovation in order to come up with a model that works for the specific economic, governmental, social, or environmental solution for it to thrive. And secondly, the variety of open data that we came across is so rich and broad that this also shows that open data is not just government information being published online, but also can take the form of open data, for example, being co-created by government organizations and citizens. Um, for example, in the case of generating information by having citizens, participants, also conducting, for example, open data being published later by the government. And in other cases, um, open data is also cross-shared across different organizations that complement the data for the data set to be published in an even better and more complete version. So we also have seen a much wider concept of open data supply rather than just government organizations publishing their data set. So again, that really helps some of the initiatives to accelerate their activities and improve the quality of their case. Then on the role of users, I already mentioned that in some cases citizens or other beneficiaries play a role in establishing the open data. However, in our view, it's important to also involve end users in other ways. So that means that many of the initiatives are in constant dialogue with end users. In some cases, these are like I said, citizens. In other cases, these are other organizations that benefit from the solution being developed. And that really means that um, having end users involved in the data collection and the open data gathering, as well as, for example, in the analysis and in the further development of the solution, that really also comes with certain buy-in and engagement that really also helped in the views of the initiatives to spur innovation, to have wider impact, and also to have more large-scale impact in the end. And then lastly, more from a methodological view and more from a research view, an important lesson learned in this third volume of the Use Case Observatory. I started saying that we went from, let's say, a single picture and a single snapshot to a situation that the observatory monitors 3 years of progress. And that also learned us that we continuously need to rethink what open data impact means, and also how we can measure it in effective and insightful ways. So in our case, this meant monitoring across 3 different years with a series of interviews and desk research, for example. But also for the initiatives themselves, it might be interesting to think, how can we actually measure the results of our work, because that can also ensure that the success and the continuity of the initiative is being safeguarded. So that helps to bear in mind. Of course, I very much encourage you all to read the different volumes of the Use Case Observatory. But I think it's time for some more concrete examples and stories. So I'm gladly handing over to the first initiative being Integreat. So Svenja Osmers, floor is yours.
Thank you so much for that lovely presentation. That was really interesting, and I'm sure very interesting for all of our viewers as well. So as you can see, the link is on the slides. Make sure to check out the Use Case Observatory. And yes, so now, as Sem has already said, we will hear from Svenja about the impressive work that Integreat has been doing over the last 2 years.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Sem. And hello, everybody. My name is Svenja Osmers, and I'm very happy to be introducing our digital integration platform, Integreat, today as one of the use cases. Our aim is to enable municipalities and other integration actors to communicate with migrants, refugees, and newcomers on a local level. And in the next round about 20 minutes, I'm going to show you how we accomplish this big task using open source technology and also the role open data plays in it. So our story began in 2015 when around 1 million refugees arrived in Germany, and the existing integration structures, such as counseling centers and volunteer organizations, were challenged by the sheer number of new arrivals. One aspect that soon became obvious to us was that while these groups were willing and ready to provide the support needed, the relevant information about where to go, who to ask, and what exactly to ask for could hardly be found online, let alone in the native language of those arriving. During this time, some of the founders of Integreat were assisting refugees in the south of Germany in Augsburg. When the lack of information became increasingly apparent, they had the idea to build a digital multilingual platform where all the relevant local information could be found. The result of this idea was Integreat, which was launched in November 2015, so we're celebrating 10 years this year as well, with local content in Augsburg by the Integration Association Tür an Tür, together with the Technical University in Munich and the Social Department of the city of Augsburg. This platform at the time contained not only important addresses, but also basic information about all topics relevant to the integration process in order to provide users with an overview and knowledge that would save precious time in counseling sessions, as those could be more focused on individual problems. At this point in 2015, there was no actual plan to expand Integreat much further. However, as the solution was developed to be the most sustainable it could be, use cases beyond the city of Augsburg were already considered from the get-go, and of course, the whole source code was developed open source. After the introduction of Integreat in Augsburg, other municipalities very quickly addressed our team as they were facing very similar challenges. And those challenges, as mentioned, were that while a lot of help was being offered all over Germany and a lot of knowledge was in the heads of integration experts and even volunteers, many municipalities in Germany were struggling to provide this information digitally and in multiple languages. And while relevant topics and user groups have evolved over time, Integreat was able to adapt accordingly due to its very open concept. Currently, we have around 140 municipalities all across Germany using Integreat actively. As you can see on the map, the yellow areas of the municipalities involved. And I just want to show you the evolution of Integreat from the very beginnings I just mentioned to today. So when we started, our organization was mostly volunteer-driven, starting with one partner city, Augsburg, and relying on human translations, and the main target group were refugees. This evolved over time to a more structured NGO with around 25 employees until 2022, somewhere between 90 and 100 partner cities and municipalities, and we included local news in the content. And also we were not only relying on human translations, but making use of the open data concept by providing translation memory. This meant that municipalities could not only use the original German text from other cities, but also their translations, which in turn saved time and money, two of the most challenging factors when it comes to our work. Our target group also evolved from refugees to migrants in general, taking into account also migrants who come to Germany specifically to work or study. This concept made it possible for our partners to react to current developments on a day-to-day basis. As an example, in 2022, the Russian attack on Ukraine led to hundreds of thousands of refugees coming to Germany again. But by then, almost 100 municipalities had already laid the groundwork and could quickly translate all the existing information into Ukrainian and Russian, as well as add new relevant information and regulations concerning specifically Ukrainian refugees. We've grown even further since then to around 37 employees, 140 partners, and we're now including also content in map format, which makes it easier to get to know your new home. On the technological side, we're using machine translations, which are coupled with the readability scoring system, ensuring that the content in German is easy to understand also for non-native speakers, while at the same time making sure that the translation quality is the best it can be. We've also improved our accessibility, for example, by providing a text-to-speech functionality. And you can see that our target group evolved even further now, including any newcomers to a region, since the content also includes advice and information on how to spend your free time or useful tips on how to find daycare in the specific municipality or city. One of the reasons why Integreat has been so sustainable is that the needs and the circumstances of the users are very well matched with the solution, which can also adapt very easily to changes and new challenges, looking at the situation that migrants and refugees are confronted with when arriving in Germany. And there are three aspects I would like to mention. First of all, most migrants and refugees and newcomers, just as anybody else, have access to smartphones, and they use them for information and contact to family and friends. Providing information for them through this established channel and via an app therefore presents itself as a very good and easy-to-use option for them. However, unfortunately, a stable internet connection in Germany is not always a given, especially in rural areas where many of the arrival centers for refugees are located, and therefore information needs to be available offline as well, which is also something we can ensure through an app. The third aspect is that topics related to integration have a very high dynamic, and contact information regulations as well as offers change on a regular basis. So the solution we have come up with is Integreat, which offers relevant information on a local level so that the authorities and the councils can focus on important one-to-one advice, as there are so many topics that we know cannot be covered digitally. And we know we can always only support those personal counseling sessions by providing information that is relevant to a larger group of people. For example, where to find the right counseling session, when they are open, and which languages are spoken there. For our solution, open data works as a great catalyst for information transparency. While local integration experts write and administer all information for the respective region, our team can focus on the technical side of things. All information is published under Creative Commons license, and therefore all information accumulates in a big pool. This means that a new municipality does not have to start from scratch, but can build on what is already there and has been done by others before. And even established municipalities, such as Augsburg, can benefit from the existing pool of information when adding new chapters or details. For many municipalities, Integreat is one of the first occasions they encounter not only the concept of open data, but at the same time, and more importantly, the many benefits of it. By actively working with it and creating open data in an integration context through Integreat, an important seed for advocating the benefits of open data is planted within the municipality. With Integreat, we are very conscious of making all information published as accessible as possible. Therefore, once information is published, it is also searchable through our common search engines. We are currently in the process of having not only municipalities creating content at the local level, but federal institutions contributing as well, so that all municipalities can benefit from the centrally created and maintained information that is relevant on a broader scale, such as, for example, transport information on how to safely ride a bike or how to car sharing works, which in this specific case is provided by the Ministry of Transport in Baden-Württemberg. Integreat is an example of how through open source of the code on the one hand and open data of all information on the other hand, sustainability and transparency can be assured beyond singular organizations involved, and therefore the impact can be higher and more sustainable in the long run. Our main goal with Integreat is to reduce information poverty, as it is one of the main contributing factors, that is limiting people's opportunities and chances in society. And what we do would not be possible without using open data, because if we're working on information transparency and that being our main goal, the usage and promotion of open data is for us a non-brainer and a really crucial part of working towards the more accessible and more understandable system for everybody. As an organization, we do our best to assist integration experts on site in their task of providing user-adequate local information, and while Integreat creates a shared communication space between all actors involved in the integration process on the local level, so for example, volunteers, migrants themselves, integration facilities, we also create regular exchange between the municipalities working on Integreat to strengthen the knowledge exchange between them and create a bigger network. And we have seen this in previous years, that this combination of a local focus and the bigger pictures enables municipalities to react to big challenges, such as the COVID pandemic or the war in Ukraine, much faster, as they can join forces early on and learn how to create information and use information together. Due to our commitment to data minimization and privacy, meaningful studies and insights into user impact have been difficult in the past, and we've been working on this for the last couple of years, as an insight into the user impact enables us to further tailor our solution to foster information transparency and independence. The impact of Integreat is assessed through a combination of user metrics, municipal feedback, and academic evaluations. From the pure numbers alone, we can see that over 100,000 app downloads and 4.5 million web hits in 2024 show the growing relevance of Integreat within or among the target audience, and 60% of those accesses are in non-German languages. We've also been part of academic studies and share these results with clear calls to actions with our partners. This enables them to benefit from these closer looks at their work, and our open data concept allows them to reuse or use adapted content from other municipalities. These studies also help us as developers of Integreat to get to know the impact we are creating and in which direction we could take the platform to have an even bigger impact. One second. For example, newcomers now report that they know essential information, such as which emergency number to call, an indicator of improved access to critical services. Early findings of the randomized control trial, despite some methodological limitations, suggest that Integreat also contributes to greater satisfaction with life in Germany, more positive integration experiences, and improved access to the job market. The larger control trial was completed in May 2025, with the results still outstanding, so once they're available, we'll share those as well. Another study published only recently gave us more insight into user needs and provided relevant and concrete calls to actions for our partners, such as the importance of everyday topics like information on housing, mobility, and opening times, or the strategic planning of translations tailored to the user group. Despite the successes, Integreat is also facing some challenges, some of them continuously and others emerging more recently. Many of the programs and offers that make integration in Germany a success are so-called voluntary services or freiwillige Leistungen. This includes, for example, counseling services, migration-sensitive opening processes in the administration, community-oriented projects at neighborhood level, or labor market related measures involving local companies. So when economic times are tougher or the political climate changes, these voluntary services are often the first ones to be cut or at least minimized. The most important factor for the success of Integreat in the municipalities themselves is someone who knows the local structures, actors, and important tips, and has the time and resources to add these into Integreat and promote Integreat in the right places, let alone updating the existing content due to the high dynamic of integration offers and regulations. These limited capacities are met by user needs that sometimes exceed what can be handled, such as detailed and timely information, opening hours, languages spoken in specific counseling centers, or events in the neighborhood. We actively work to support our partners through this by adding functions and mechanisms that help them use the little time they have as effectively as possible, by offering prepared materials for general information, as mentioned before, or by providing API interfaces to avoid double maintenance of data. Further, the pilot implementation in Greece clearly demonstrated to us the critical role of local context in launching civil society initiatives. Success there depended not only on the technology itself, but on the presence of an in-country project team with deep expertise in the national IT infrastructure, migration ecosystem, and institutional landscape. This local knowledge was essential for tailoring the initiative to the specific environment and ensuring its relevance and effectiveness. These experiences also reinforce that the true value of open data lies not merely in transparency, but in its ability to enhance the practical utility of the platform and support meaningful, context-sensitive implementation. We understand Integreat not only to be an information app, but a collaborative platform for our partners where one can learn from the other through open data used as shared content and knowledge. In the face of new technologies, such as chatbots, the mere information can, at some point, hopefully, probably, be accessed by users in a quicker and possibly more tailored fashion, which is why our network of partners becomes ever more important, and open source is the true value of it. To end my presentation, I would like to take a small look into the future of Integreat and give you an idea what is next for us. As a social enterprise, we focus obviously on the impact that we have, that we can have on the life of migrants and refugees, and measuring this impact is a big task and also really important to us. So we're currently conducting, as I said, the more in-depth randomized control trial with around 500 active participants in all over Germany to learn more about the impact Integreat has as an enabler of access to the society. We also hope to strengthen links to municipal websites and to ease the search for information within Integreat even further by scaling our search assistant that is currently in the beta testing phase that can answer questions on a more personal level across municipalities. To make this information accessible to all, we are also working on improved accessibility through design components. Our web app has already been redesigned following this concept, and our native app is in the works for next year. Lastly, we believe that we've learned very early on that we can scale our impact beyond Augsburg, but we believe that that is not the end of it. Sorry, and that information poverty due to language barriers is limiting migrants and refugees access to work and society all over the world. And we are very interested to see how we can still scale the impact even beyond the borders of Germany and grow the current project we are starting in other countries. So with this, I'd like to thank you very much for your interest in our initiative and the Integreat platform, and I'm happy to answer any questions that might have arisen as best as I can later on.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Svenja, for this great presentation. I have to say, I am absolutely amazed by the work you do. So we will take all of the questions that have come in during your presentations at the end during the Q&A session, which is very exciting, I'm sure. For now, we will move on to Antonio, who is taking a more artistic approach to open data. So please, Antonio, tell us more about your initiative, Tangible Data.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm here in Uruguay, so it's early in the morning. Thank you, EU Publications Office, for this opportunity to explain the project. It's been a long time. We've been here at the EU Observatory for 3 years, and our project, Tangible Data, has grown a lot. Our project is about transforming data into tangible experiences that everyone can feel and understand. So to give you a glimpse of what we do, I'll show you our first model. This is a typical tangible data sculpture representing climate change from 1880 till 2024. This was made in our garage with our own tools. And it happened, this was the status, the second model that we had built. The sculptures are made to be handed in the hands of people. But lately, we also grown to a larger dimension. And so we built larger sculptures like this one. This is a 2 square meter sculpture about climate change as well that was deployed at the Global Open Data Sustainable Development Data Conference here in Uruguay a couple of years ago, which shows this was what we sent in the second volume of the Open Data Observatory. So we were growing in size and complexity. And finally, some weeks ago, we achieved our latest model. This is the latest sculpture that we have deployed at the National Science Museum in Madrid. It's going to be a stable sculpture that is going to be presented for the next couple of years. Is going to be visited by more than 400,000 people. And as far as I know, I think it's going to be the largest monument to open data that I know of. At least it will be the heaviest. It's like around 2,000 kilos. It's built on steel. So we are very proud because this really tells the story of a project that grew like 3 years ago, and it's now on the end of the prototyping phase. We are now public, and we are seeing that we have been able to take the data out of the screens and onto the physical spaces, and we are making people gather around the data and talk about the data. This is basically the essence of our project. So to give you a bit of more information of why we are doing this, everything stems from what we call the information paradox, and we feel that we live in a strange time with a lot of information. There's a lot of data. There's a lot of studies. There's a lot of investment in research and development. There's a lot of technology, a lot of AI. But on the other hand, we feel that there's a lot of denialism, populism, racism. There's a lot of, a wave of questioning evidence and the data. So there's kind of a disconnect between the data that we have and the evidence that we have, and some of the decisions that we are making as societies, our choices as communities. So we believe that in so many ways, we need to bridge this gap. We need to find a way to make data accessible to people. So we need to bring data to people instead of trying to make people come to the data. And the only way we could think about this was creating physical sculptures that we can place in public spaces so people can gather around, explore the data without their mobile phones, without screens, using their hands, also using maybe sounds or different ways of making data tangible, so we could connect more emotionally with them. We believe that when we use this type of approach, when we touch the data, when we feel it, we generate emotions, and those emotions actually help us send messages that stick into the memory of our visitors. That's very important today because we feel that when we look at the data on a screen, most of the times we are on a laptop, but we have our mobile phones, we have the TV on, we are in a kind of setting that is not good for learning, and there's a lot of learning that we need to do to explain the complexities of the phenomena that we live surrounded by. So in so many ways, this is a learning project. So it's about helping everyone learn more about the data. And, we hope, it's our humble intention to, with this project, bridge this gap in the DIKY pyramid. So we hope that by including more feelings, more emotions into the data, we will help make people better decisions and prioritize issues like climate change or transparency or education or health into their own narratives, so they take it into account when they go voting. So how do we do it? We have developed a framework. We call it From Data to Action. And From Data to Action has 3 basic steps. The first one is about feeling the data. The physical sculptures, like, for example, this one, they are small sculptures or big sculptures that you can touch with your own senses. The idea is that you get attracted by the data and you feel invited by the data to explore more. Then the second step is remembering the data. So every data sculpture comes with a QR code or an NFC tag that takes you to a web application. And in the web application, we give you more detail, more context about the data. We tell you more about the data sources. tell you more about the complexities and the hidden aspects of that data set so that you can learn more. And then the third element is a call to action. So basically, our funnel is that if you feel attracted by the data and you have read the story about the data, maybe you want to do something else about the data. So, but if you are, interested in climate change, but you are not a specialist in climate change, you often wonder, what else could I do? So on our website, we try to channel all this interest into specific actions. In these years, our approach and our main channels have evolved, and I could summarize them like this. We work a lot with museums like the National Science Museum in Madrid, because it's a natural center of people, and it's a learning center by default, where data could be more present. We work now with schools, especially with 15 and 16-year-old students, to help them understand what is data and how we make decisions based on data, and where can they get data to understand their environment. We work with the third sector, with NGOs, to help them increase visibility of specific issues. For example, I will tell you more about a workshop that we did with a neighboring association here in Madrid. But we also work with corporate social responsibility companies to help them visualize and engage audiences in their commitments towards sustainability, and governments, because we help them give visibility to the data that they publish. In all these years, I have to say that there's a turning point, and it happened probably around in the mid of this year with AI. I think it has been a breaking point for us, because it took me, the project started like 10 years ago, and it took me really a while to explain someone that I wanted to transform a data set into a physical object and to get it into my hands. But now I know how to do it. And, I felt that when AI came, I could expand this project to a larger extent. So suddenly I became more savvy in extracting and manipulating open data from different data sources. I could work with several portals at the same time. I could work with APIs. I could develop my own code. I could, join the data sets and reports, 400-page reports, summarize, create knowledge bases for my AI assistants. And then I got even support to create new ways of making data tangible, like different formats in 3D, maps, sound, anything was possible after the evolution of some of the AI solutions that exist in the market. So lately in this year, we have evolved our kind of lines of work into 3 different types of solution. The data sculptures that I told you about, but then we have started developing interactive applications. And we use those 2, data sculptures and interactive applications, to develop in-person labs, where we bring the data and gather the people around the data to talk about the data and to generate new narratives based on the data. One example of a tangible data app is this Air Guardians application. It won 1 award at the Open Data Reuse Prize in Madrid, and it offers a wide variety of applications to understand the quality of air in Madrid. Basically, it's a gamification where the user becomes an air guardian, and it uses AI to know more about the air quality. We use dashboards, we use real-time data, we use sonification, 3D modeling. We have turned the data set, single data set, into so many things. So we have done this for air quality, for climate, to understand better one neighborhood in Madrid. And we can deploy these lightweight applications very quickly and for different purposes. As I told you, this is kind of the shape of a tangible data lab where we brought, a data sculpture and the web application to gather around a set, volunteers in a neighborhood to talk about the data. In these labs, for example, we explain more about the data and we help participants think about proposals they would like to make, for example, to the participation portal in Madrid. But the most important thing is that we have brought these labs to schools, where we had one experience this year with 15-year-olds, and it was so enriching and confirming that we have a great opportunity to bring data to these, what I call high risk informational groups, where it's basically communities that have less access to the data, like young people. And it was increasingly, it was very, very interesting to see that they have a great technology capacity, especially after COVID, because now at every school there's Google Drive, there's Google Sheets, or anything similar. There's Looker Studio. So we can really bring the data into the classroom. In these labs, for example, I teach them how to navigate an open data portal, download a CSV, open it in Google Sheets, create the first chart, and even create their own first formulas like the max, mean, value, average, and then they have to write their own conclusions. And when we finish the course, we leave the data sculpture and the explanation stick on the wall. So when another student comes and asks, what is this thing? The other student responds and becomes a data ambassador. So what we are seeing is that these sculptures have effect afterwards, which is very, very interesting. To give you some examples of data sculptures and projects that we built recently, this was about COVID. We wanted to explain how COVID had evolved and how important data had been for COVID management. What you see here on the top of the data sculpture, that's the Omicron wave. It's the Christmas from 2021 to 2022, where we were all vaccinated and we were all, after those Christmas, we were all infected by COVID, but the mortality rate was practically zero. So in the lockdown, the Delta wave, which is this small one that is close to the QR code, we can see that many of us, we broke probably the isolation and the lock-in. We got infected, but the mortality rate here was high. So when I worked in COVID data, I realized, this is the perfect example of what a data-driven policy making is, and how much data can impact our lives. It was determining if we could go out of our houses, meet our relatives, etc. So I said, this time series deserves a data sculpture. And I often find that people have somehow forgotten some of the, of the evolution of this crisis. So this is kind of a reminder of many of the things that we all lived through COVID, but most of all, the relevance of data and the complexities of getting high quality data to inform our decisions. We have worked on also in, for example, this one is about trust in public institutions. We use data from OECD to make this type of sculptures for an exhibition about sustainability, which, for us, it was interesting because we wanted to explain what sustainability is. And so we selected 3 sculptures to tell more about the ESG approach. So we chose, obviously, climate change for the environmental sustainability, something that everybody can understand. For the social component of sustainability, we selected the extreme poverty. But the G component, which is very hard to explain to many, we selected trust in public institutions. So we wanted with this small exhibit to show the relationship between three different aspects that are sometimes not connected. Poverty, for example, climate, and trust in public institutions. So we want to launch this type of questions to the audience and invite them to reflect on this type of issues. We have been also collaborating with, the sculpture is right here on the left, sorry, with other type of partners. In this case, we worked on primary education rates. So to reflect, how primary education had evolved in time in Central America. And it was exhibited at a rotating exhibition in Central America. So another cases of web applications that we are doing right now is the impact of AI on the workforce. So we are, for example, connecting to other type of data sources, like, for example, the US Department of Labor. They have a great data set about professions. So we want to launch, maybe this will not have a sculpture, but it will be a standalone application, tools that built with AI that can help us understand some of the upcoming challenges that we are facing. So the idea here is to start working more on a different way, leveraging data not only for sculptures, but for web applications. In this application, for example, you can explore job profiles for families, understand more about the task, the skills they have, and how AI may replace or augment those skills or tasks. And it helps you build transition plans for the future. So what next for us? We feel that we have ended our prototyping phase. We're ready for the next phase, and it's time to relaunch our initiative. So with this, I would like to give some maybe lessons learned that we have acquired all this time. The first one, I think, is that data alone does not create understanding. So sometimes, I feel that we give a lot of data in the news and in different outlets, but I feel that data is not reaching the ultimate phases of understanding. So we need to do something more. We need to bring the data out of the screens and give it to people. I think tangibility in itself changes the relationship with the data, because if we bring emotions and if we bring people around the data, we can help, make a meaningful mind situation for audiences that will help them remember forever our message. So I think it's a great solution. I think it works. I think collective exploration is more powerful than individual insight. So when we place the sculpture and we put people around and they discuss, I think that's what we ultimately want to do. We want to generate those narratives. I would also say that accessibility should not be an add-on. It's a design driver. So, for example, when we design these sculptures, we have worked with the National Blind Association here in Spain to really understand some of the particularities of designing physical things. Because, for example, they say, you have to give room for the finger to be able to touch. So it cannot have like a lot of spikes. So we have to take all these elements into account when we designed the data and the communication strategies. I think physicalization often reveals patterns that the data may hide. So, for example, in this sculpture that you see here, this is a map of a district in Madrid, this district I worked on. And we took the average income per polling section, and we built this kind of elevation. So I think it's great because you can see the differences that within the district exist. And when you touch them, you realize and when you see them this way, you realize how important these differences are. I would also say, maybe to end up this part, that AI is a force multiplier. It's not the goal, but it's a very powerful multiplier. So I think the open data community can do much more. We can fulfill most of the aspirations that we have been having for all these years. Now, anyone without coding knowledge or technical background can use APIs and can use data and transform it in different ways. So I think it's the beginning of a new period for this community. It's very promising, and I think and I hope that we can overturn the fake news paradigm and create more the true news paradigm, where creating true news it basically becomes cheaper and faster, and we can expand more the messages that data and the science that data is sending to us. Finally, I would like to say that we are evolving our ecosystem. We are grateful to all the partners that have worked with us in the past years. We have worked with a great variety of partners, from institutions, museums, schools, multilateral organizations, agencies, media agencies. So I think there's a lot of people, a lot of elements in our ecosystem that we can bring in. Especially, I would say that schools and museums are two very relevant ones. So I would like to just finish here. Thank you all for your time. And I hope to see you soon, and hope that we can build a sculpture together.
Wow, what a great project. Thank you so much for that interesting presentation. Your work really proves that data is so much more than abstract numbers. So thank you for that. So with that, we are now entering the last phase of our webinar, the highly anticipated Q&A. We've seen all your questions, and we will try to answer as many as possible. I will leave the moderation for this part to Sem, since he is our expert in the use cases. And yeah, so Sem, please go ahead and ask some of the questions.
Yes, and thank you very much indeed for the nice presentations, and also for all the questions that already have come in. So we'll certainly take a few already to say a few more things around the background of the Use Case Observatory, but of course also specifically related to the Integreat and tangible data stories. So, for example, maybe to begin, there were a few questions around the Use Case Observatory methodology, also the interview setup, for example, taking place. Here I would like to inform you that all the 3 volumes actually contain in the appendix the questions being shared with different initiatives and discussed during the interviews that we conducted. So these include questions around the history of the initiative. I think, as also, for example, mentioned by Antonio in the last part, updates and developments around collaboration, but also as Svenja, for example, mentioned, questions around some of the measurable and quantitative developments, like the number of employees or the number of volunteers being involved. These type of questions are all listed in the appendix of the different volumes. And good to mention that the 3rd volume, being kind of a closing report, included also some questions that are more overarching the 3 different measurements. So that's all to be found in the volume of the Use Case Observatory. Then maybe moving on to some questions around open data supply and broadening open data supply. I think as also today's speakers illustrate, sometimes open data derives from Eurostat or from other international statistical offices like the OECD. And what we have seen in the different use cases is that by taking a larger stance on open data, so not just looking at, for example, EU open data, but also non-EU open data, that can really help drive initiative forward. And the same goes for open data that is not primarily obtained by government organizations, but is, for example, also citizen generated, or, for example, populated by scientific institutions. So that's what we really have seen in these type of initiatives, is that it really helps to take a broader open data supply stance in order to find most relevant information to proceed. So that hopefully giving a bit of background in line of some of the questions being raised. Then maybe before going to some of the project-specific questions, maybe one more generic remark. There's also a few questions around other examples, for example, from Italy or other countries. It's good to mention that in the Use Case Observatory, there are two initiatives that are EU-wide. So there's no specific Italian example, but there is two EU-wide initiatives, one related to statistics on persons with disabilities, that is actually developed by an Italian scientist. So in that sense, it's somewhat Italian. That one is Visum Me 360, using mostly Eurostat data. And there's also the project called EU Twinnings, and that allows you to find similar cities or urban regions based on your own place of residence or area of interest. So that would also be an option to, for example, explore some more open data for specific countries in Europe. There are also still a few questions around transparency, but perhaps I'll tap into that one as we also have discussed a few Integreat and tangible data related questions. Maybe along the lines of the question I just addressed, maybe starting with Integreat, there's been, I think, a very interesting question from the audience around transferability to other countries. So to what extent, can we see any international activity when it comes to Integreat in the future? Are there any examples of initiatives beyond Germany?
Right. Thank you very much for the question. So in theory, or not in theory, but also in practice, as Integreat is open source, the whole model, so the content management system in the background, but also the web app and the native app, are all transferable. And the way we work currently with German municipalities is that most of them pay a small premium, a price, that we manage the software for them, and they get to just do the content management, basically. So that would be completely transferable to other countries. And I actually do have an example in Ireland. If you go to Integreat.app, you can see all the municipalities using it, and under K you can see Kerry County. So Kerry County in Ireland is the most recent one that is actually also live with the content, so it can be used. And apart from basically municipalities paying for our service as the technical organization behind it, because of the open source code, they can also completely set it up themselves and bring it to the stores to have maybe also their own branding on it and not the Integreat branding.
Excellent. Thank you for elaborating on that. Maybe a question for the both of you, because also participants can imagine that you need a certain level of skill, or at least need to have some foundations in place in order for the project to evolve. Can you perhaps elaborate a bit on the skill needed to well, establish such a project, but also to further kickstart and boost?
Should I start?
Okay.
Sorry. So just quickly, because I think this is for us a bit removed from sheer numbers. I mean, it makes it easier because we work with a lot of mouth-to-mouth propaganda, basically, so that one municipality tells the other about Integreat, and that's how they get to know about it. But I think it also depends a lot on external circumstances for us. So we could see big growth during the COVID pandemic and the war in Ukraine, simply because that was when these integration actors were looking for other ways to communicate multilingually, digitally, their new information and needs. So I think that for us was a big catalyst. Apart from, it's hard to put a number on it, but yeah, that I think is worth mentioning.
Thank you. In our case, this project from the outset has been a bootstrap project. So we have tried to grow through project financing, and I think, you know, the EU Publications Office has been really fundamental into, you know, providing visibility, and institutional support has been really relevant, also from the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data. And you know, we have always wanted to do as much as we can with the least amount of resources that we can. So that has been part of the essence, and I think it's part of the reflection. Sometimes when we work with data and we have a tool at hand, like a dashboard, we tend to create thousands of visualizations, and that they move, and you can merge with different type of variables. But for us, the work is totally different. We have to select the one thing that works and the one technique that we can implement in this time frame. So sometimes, you know, we needed to renounce and compromise certain parts of the design, or sometimes I don't like 100% the sculpture that we make, but it's more important to make the data accessible. So, you know, we always have this trade-off.
Indeed. And perhaps to elaborate on the tangible data project specific questions were also related to the different audience that project serves. So, for example, indeed, involving school students as an example. So, can you maybe elaborate a bit on things you take into account when adapting your sculptures and art to these specific audiences, and also perhaps whether you try and find specific type of data that may be more easily understandable for these type of students?
Yeah, so I try to work with mostly like large time series, and basically about topics that are well known by everyone, and that I know that they are complete series. So I'm sure in the delivery that they are going to work. But one of the things that I was very surprised when I work with 15-year-olds is that they have an incredible technology capacity. So, for example, I had prepared kind of more than half a session or even a session to explain them what a CSV was, and the process of downloading the CSV and uploading onto Google Drive and create the chart. And when I turned around and I saw everyone having the chart already built on their screens, I said, these people are amazing. I mean, I don't need to explain this. So we can go much faster. So, and they were able to discover nuances. All the data sets that I have, they have like a hidden element, and it's kind of the game that I play in the classroom, and they were able to find it. So, for example, in the extreme poverty data set, the lowest value is not the most recent value, and they were able to spot that, you know, and I was very, very surprised.
Fantastic. Well, maybe as a last question, and that's also, I think, much in light of the collaborative spirit that the both of you have demonstrated in the past 3 years. In the end, collaboration and sharing information plays a key role also in propelling forward these type of initiatives. So maybe can you share any last lessons learned or observations so when it comes to sharing the open data or sharing any of the building blocks from those solutions?
I think, if I may start, Svenja, sorry. I would say that there's a lot of evidence that we already have at hand to make our policies and our choices as society much better. And sometimes, I would like to say in a softer way, but we have been lazy and we have relied too much on the online channels to communicate things. So, for example, the quality of air in Madrid, which is great, but sometimes it has spikes, contaminants that go farther than the approved limits. And those moments are when people are in the streets and sport, racing or whatever. And sometimes city governments, they say, no, it's on the web. We have the alerts on the web. But when you go running on a park, you're not looking at the institutional website to know what's the quality of air. So we need to design ways to bring the data into physical spaces where people are actually walking around and where they contextualize the data. So, for example, I don't know, any data set could be part of our urban space on our social space. I think that's where I would like to see. I would like to see one of these sculptures in Times Square, in any square, where we can attract a lot of people, where we can generate noise and really highlight the challenges that we are facing these days.
Great reflection. Perhaps, Svenja, any last considerations or reflections from your side on sharing data as part of Integreat or the collaborative nature of the initiatives?
Yeah, I think what we could really see with Integreat was the development from most of our partners in the beginning thinking, I can create the best content, how I do it is the way we want to go, to, others are using good information, presenting it in a really interesting and accessible way as well. And due to this open data concept, we can just use that and adapt that maybe with like local specific information, but the way it is presented, that changed how they perceived what is good content. And I really like this development, this process that we can see, especially from the earlier partners, but also now with the new partners joining. And additionally, that even though for some partners there's already a lot of collaboration between like different municipalities, we can see that Integreat specifically, they are also cooperating. So they are creating content, for example, that's valid for the whole federal state, simply because they agreed, hey, it's nice to have a central platform where we can update this and everybody can use it. So I really like to see this development and how they believe in open data because of it.
Superb. That's excellent. And just as there were actually still some questions raised, also please know that in the volume itself, there's also an overview of all the initiatives and those that were willing for any follow-up questions and reaching out. Also, the contact details are listed in the report. So hope we can also continue the dialogue there. Yes, thank you. Hannah, over to you for some concluding words, I believe.
Yes, it is sadly time to come to a conclusion. I just want to say a massive thank you to all of our speakers, Sem, Svenja, Antonia, to all of you, and also, of course, to our viewers and for being so engaged and listening to everything we had to say. So this may have been our last webinar of the year. However, don't be too disappointed. We have exciting things planned for the next year. So please make sure to stay up to date with our 2026 activities. For example, the next webinar we have planned will be a continuation of our Smart Cities series, so very interesting. If you have any other questions for our speakers, or maybe just want to have a discussion about this topic, we have a collaboration channel where you can continue the discussion and who knows, maybe even find your future business partner there. So make sure to check it out. Also, finally, we would really appreciate, like we've said, if you use the link that you can see up on the screen to share your feedback with us. We really benefit from being able to know what you're looking for, what you want to see more of, and any other things you may have to share with us. So thank you so much for coming to our webinar, and we will see you in the next year.